Hello, welcome to another book review. I'm your host, Kristen, and today I will be reviewing the YA fantasy book House of Night, Betrayed, by PC and Kristen Cast, which is an appropriate name considering that's how I felt after reading it. In case you are interested in reading this book afterward, content warnings in this book are blood, vomit, violence, abuse, ableism, racism, exotification, slurs, grooming, sex shaming, sexism, child death, transphobia, Islamophobia, and homophobia. For this review, I will start with the overall plot, then world building, and finally characters. Just a note, there will be major spoilers in this review. Let's begin. The main premise is that 16-year-old Zoe Redbird is now the new leader of the Dark Daughters, and must organize and perform a ritual along with determining a new council. Along the way, she runs into one of her professors, and the two start a romantic relationship. However, football players start vanishing from Zoe's old high school. They wind up dead, appearing to be the victims of a vampire attack, and Zoe must find the culprit. Although this plot seems interesting, almost nothing happens in this book. I'm not kidding. The readers hear about mysterious going-ons, but instead of Zoe investigating, she complains about having 3 boyfriends and how difficult it is, despite the fact that she never actually attempts to solve her issues. Not to mention that Zoe's relationship with a professor is highly disturbing, although it's clearly written to be seen as romantic. Although it's not Zoe's fault for being preyed upon by an adult, the other characters actively encourage it, saying that Zoe is special, and therefore the rules don't apply to her, even though it's mentioned that a relationship between a vampire and vampire fledgling is illegal for a very good reason. As for the world building, it is still pretty much all over the place. Apparently, dead fledgling vampires can transform into red fledglings minus their humanity. However, it is never explained how that happens or why it is occurring just now. Most of the issues the characters have to face are all solved by casting a circle, which gets old fast since they just repeat the same motions over and over. Other than that, the reader doesn't get anything new. For an MC, Zoe is still awful, and one may argue that she's even worse now that she's in a position of power. For most of her assignments, Zoe constantly procrastinates until the last minute, and then complains about how stressed she is having to do a ton of work. She also somewhat threatens people who argue with her using her elements, making her nothing short of a bully who throws her weight around to get what she wants. It's also laughable when Zoe mentions how she wants to reform the Dark Daughters into a club that is less of a clique, and then puts all of her friends onto the council. Furthermore, when Zoe witnesses Aphrodite being emotionally, verbally, and physically abused by her parents, Zoe thinks how she hates understanding why Aphrodite acts the way she does. Zoe then goes on further to continue making fun of people with mental illnesses and insulting the homeless. Sadie Ray is also still a flat character until after she dies at the full moon ritual and then loses her humanity. Although it was fun to see Stevie Ray in an antagonist position when she was resurrected, it took forever to get there due to Zoe's boyfriend drama. The dramatic reveal is ruined because Zoe saw Stevie Ray as a red fledgling earlier in a dream, but then brushed it off. The twins are still one-dimensional characters who are too prone to violence. Moving on. In this book, Damien gets a boyfriend named Jack. Normally, this would be fine and very sweet, except for the fact that Jack is also a stereotype. In this case, the stereotype would be that a gay couple still has a man and a woman role, with Damien being portrayed as more manly, and Jack being written as emotional, fragile, and in constant need of comfort. All the other gay background characters are described as too girly for Damien as well. Now that Aphrodite is no longer leader of the Dark Daughters, she does have one of the more developed personalities out of the main cast. However, she doesn't have much of a role in the story, besides helping stop a bridge collapse through her visions. As the new main antagonist of the series, Neferet is almost as weak as Aphrodite. He is very obvious as the villain, despite none of the other characters noticing her getting angry or acting in an awful manner. She's more active than Aphrodite, but all her evil deeds are off-screen, so she still doesn't seem like a threat. Her motive for creating the red fledglings, because she hates humans, is also poorly thought out. In the first book, Neferet explained to Zoe how Neferet's father abused her as a child before Neferet was marked into turning into a vampire. Honestly, I hate this trope of abuse turning people evil, and with Neferet, it's even worse. I'm not saying that abuse doesn't have awful outcomes, but making a person turn evil on the sole reason that they were abused really gives survivors a negative message. Overall, I give this book 1 star, but would rate it lower if I could. If anything, it's even worse than the first one, in that nothing happened. The most interesting parts were the red fledglings, but that was almost at the end of the book. Also, in order to stop a major accident, Zoe and company call in a bomb threat on a bridge, and there is blatant Islamophobia. Overall, I do hope the cast will keep improving their craft.